Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessie. If you are new here, this is my husband Ben. Usually I do a lot of videos like lifestyle videos, vlogs, motherhood, but I sometimes do personal finance and goals types of videos as well. But I actually have a Q&A for you guys today. Just a couple of really good questions that you guys asked. Nobody ever asks lame or like surface level questions. They're always very in-depth. We were talking about this earlier, which I thought was interesting. So
yeah, basically, very much appreciate the thought that you put into it and send over.
Yeah, so a lot of the questions are money/moving related. So that's kind of what I would say like the theme is, just based on what you guys asked. But I did want to start out just because you're not in my videos all the time.
Yeah.
So do you want to just like say a little bit about yourself for those of you that don't know him or haven't seen him in the vlogs very often?
Oh man, put on the spot. I wasn't aware I was gonna have to do this. I am Ben. I am a program manager is what I do for work. I've been working a corporate job for a couple of years now, which was a transition after having my own business for, for all intents and purposes, a decade. So I've done anything from personal training to life coaching, and even started a donut business somewhere in there.
You even did Uber Eats for a little while.
Did Uber Eats when I was transitioning out of my business and knew that I'd be going back into the corporate world and trying to make ends meet at that point. So I like to consider myself someone who has a wide range of kind of experiences in my life. I enjoy that. I think that I've grown a lot personally from that, and I always am looking for new things and new ways to learn and challenge myself. And yeah, which kind of brings us to today. I'm just very happy doing what I'm doing, and my role as a father and a husband has just been really fun and rewarding, and of course challenging. All phases of life have their challenges. We'll kind of touch on some, I suppose. Very much just enjoying this phase.
We'll get started with some of these questions. The first one is, do you track net worth and what goals are you working toward? Well, the first part of the question, I'll just say Benjamin was, when I told him what the questions were, he was like, do people actually track net worth? So that's your answer. No, we don't track net worth. It's not something that we currently care about. I don't know. It's just like not a part of our routine or something that we're interested in tracking. If you guys track your net worth and you think it's really important, let me know down below why you track it. But yeah, it's not something that we currently do.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, is because we don't, and we both kind of were immediately like, no, we don't. We just don't have a reason to really care at this point. I was also going to say, like, if you do and you think it is important, or you enjoy it or feel that it's important to you, yeah, please let us know your thoughts and reasons. I'm definitely curious, as this isn't something that we do. I will also say one additional thing that kind of came to mind with this is that, like, I think it can be very discouraging for somebody with so much debt. And again, this is like without really having thought it through very much or having like gone through the exercise myself, but that was also kind of like my second thought, was like, I don't know if I want to know that.
The second part of that question was, what goals are you working toward? I'm assuming you mean more financial goals, just because your other question was a little bit finance related. We are gonna do a mid-year check-in on our goals video that we did at the beginning of the year. I know a couple of you said that you would like that. Probably won't film that until this weekend or maybe even next weekend. Ben has like a crazy week for work this week. But I would say offhand, goals we're working toward is still focusing on building our savings, whether that savings eventually partially gets put toward a down payment on a home. Kind of just depends what happens with that in the next couple of years. But I think for us, building up our savings is the most important. We do have debt that we would like to pay off, but it's all student loan debt besides one car loan. As annoying as that debt is, and we wish we didn't have it, it's not something we're super focused on right now.
I guess I would also just say, in terms of goals, just because I feel like it like kind of relates to my little intro, is like, we are really just working towards how to like really root down as a family and create a home. Things like a house and location, people around us, community, etc. All that's important, but the illustrated to you, like the fundamental aspect of that is, how do we create a home? We're very much just craving feeling that, and feeling like we're doing that both for ourselves, in our mid-30s now, and kind of like I just, I talked about like how I've bounced around in my career and all that. Like, I think we're just really craving feeling situated and wanting to create something, create a life. But especially now, with a family, feels that much more real. So I think that's kind of like big picture, broad goal.
The second question is, I'm behind on videos, so not sure if you've mentioned retirement planning in any of them, but would love to hear more about these plans. We don't currently have any plans. I've asked Ben a couple times to look into the retirement stuff for his work. Initially, we weren't able to put any money toward retirement because we needed his full income, and a lot's happened with work now, so I do think that it's something he's gonna look into soon.
The thing with that is like, coming out of being in a debt situation, there just wasn't anything left over, and like I'm a numbers guy. I understand that to not be using that is really not great, because
or to not have any retirement savings like isn't setting you up for much success.
Yeah, and especially with having kids, but you're leaving money on the table, and like we understand that part. It is a balance with when you have debt, and then
debt and high expenses. We weren't really paying anything off on our debt.
Yes, so that's just kind of where we've been for the last however many years. To be honest, we've both had retirement savings in the past from our individual corporate lives, and we've burned through it as emergency funds. There's also a part of me, just being very open and honest, that is just kind of has a negative viewpoint of it, and it's like, well, I'm just gonna have to use it as emergency fund at some point, or it's just like, I don't know. So there's just that aspect to it. But yeah, something that we are really wanting to look into at this point and in the near future.
Next question is, do you still plan to make a lump sum debt payment this year, or did you decide to save for down payment instead? We haven't really decided, to be honest. I think it's mid-year, and it's not something that we plan on doing until at least the end of the year. I think a couple things go into that. We're still waiting to hear how much, if anything, we have to pay for my hospital stay a couple of months ago, so we don't know if that's going to drain anything from our savings. We are interested in possibly purchasing a home. We just don't know if that's going to be this next year or a following year, so that might impact whether we're saving or not. There's also the option of like another child coming into the picture, which could impact the overall decision on whether we're saving or not. So I think we're kind of waiting to see where those things come out, and we'll at the end of the year go through that. We might even just wait. Like, a lot of times the beginning of the year you get a tax refund. Ben's usually up for a raise or a bonus sometimes, so those things can also impact. Like this year we were able to put that money into savings and grow our savings in a really big way. Maybe next year we'll decide that we want to pay off one of our student loans. I'll also say one big thing that's coming at the end of the year, I think we're only paid out through the donut business that Ben used to be part owner of through the end of the year, so that will be hitting us. That'll be taking away an income, and then my income is still so up in the air. I don't think anything's going to happen to the client that I'm working with, but I only have one client, so if something happens with them, that is a huge chunk of our income that would not be here as well. So I think having like a substantial savings is more important to us than paying off debt at this time. But that is because we're in a place right now where most of our debt is student loan debt, and it's lower interest than other debt. So I feel like we don't feel as panicked about it.
We're just trying to put ourselves in a good position for having savings and being able to have some flexibility, which financial flexibility is something that we haven't had in the past. So that's kind of like the main goal. And then, whether it's end of year or early next year, doing an assessment to figure out, maybe having some clarity on some of the variables that Jessie mentioned, being able to make decisions from there. But at this point, it's pretty much just zoomed in on the goal of let's continue to build the savings up.
Top places where you're considering buying a home, and how much do you want to have saved before purchasing? As far as saved before purchasing, I think currently we're planning on putting down 3%. So we would like to have that saved plus closing costs plus a substantial amount for afterwards, so that if something is wrong with the house or something goes wrong or another emergency happens or whatever, we still have some backup. We don't want to drain our savings just to buy a house, or, you know, again, all the other variables I was just talking about in the last question could impact that as well. So I think that that's why like building that savings is very important to us. As far as top places we're considering buying a home, do you want to say them?
In terms of places, y'all know at this point, if you've been around for a bit, that we're pretty much choosing between here in the Midwest. We're currently in Illinois. Jessie's family is from Wisconsin. So both of those places are like on the table, or North Carolina, because we just loved it there so much and we still miss it.
It's also the more financially intelligent decision.
Right.
Compared to the Midwest.
I don't know how much you've talked about it in videos, or if it makes sense to like eventually do in a video, or if it's not interesting, maybe you guys don't want to see this, like a full pros and cons list type of thing of all the options. But right, I mean, there's pros and cons to all of them, which is why it feels so hard to us. And each one of those pros and cons feels like a very real pro or a very real con. Those are the things that's on the table, and it's a big decision.
I think if it was a little bit more specific, we would probably look in the Raleigh, Wake Forest area, or north of that in North Carolina. Here, really the only place that I'm interested in living is Wheaton, which we're completely priced out of currently, unless we buy a home that's like less than 1,000 square feet, which I am not interested in doing with our family.
It's not feasible.
Yeah, especially with him working full-time from home, that's just like not possible. There's been like a couple other suburbs that have been like nicer than where we live in Schaumburg. Schaumburg just like isn't our vibe. It's just a little too busy. And then when we've looked in Wisconsin, we've looked at like the outskirts of Madison, but again, similar. It's very expensive. It's very expensive to own here, and I guess especially when you're thinking about what you can get for your money. Again, in Wheaton, if you want to spend under $400,000, you're going to get a house that is either completely wrecked or is less than 1,000 square feet, or both. I think a lot of homes in Illinois are like that. They're just older for the most part. Illinois has really high property tax as well, so that's something to keep in mind. Wisconsin, I don't really want to move to like bum because that's kind of where I'm from. And I think with our lifestyle, living somewhere where we don't have access to like certain things, it just doesn't make sense for us. So we've looked at like the outskirts of Madison, like even pretty far outskirts of Madison, and it's kind of a similar issue where they're pretty high priced for what you get. Which is why I'm saying before that like why Raleigh keeps coming up for us, not only because it's like beautiful and we love it, but it's also one of the only places that we might be able to get something that like fits what we're looking for the price that we want. Those are the places currently that are like what we're truly considering.
And I will just acknowledge like there's inherent privilege baked into these conversations, and the idea that we actually would have some flexibility, whether financial or even like me with my job being able to move around, just acknowledging that we are fortunate that those things are even on the table for us, whereas for a lot of people they wouldn't be. So please don't, understand that we don't want to sound ungrateful for having options.
But I think it's also realistic that we aren't on the flip side of that, where a lot of homes are like much above $500,000, and that's just like not something that we are financially able to do. So like we are privileged for sure, but I think that there's also some frustration. I've talked about this in other videos with just like how much stuff is right now, and more people are being priced out of purchasing a home. So purchasing a home might not even actually happen for us. Like we may stay renting either here or somewhere else for a few more years. I don't really know.
Yeah, and that was why I wanted to mention kind of and I appreciate the question of like what our goals are as a family, because having that overarching goal of wanting to like root down and really have somewhere feel like home regardless of where it is, that's still the North Star. So we have to take that into consideration with all of these variables, and it's a very hard pill to swallow to say, oh, well, you're gonna have to rent for 3 to 5 more years before you can own, when
I mean, renting's even expensive.
Right, but you're saying like truly priced out of all this other stuff. So
if you're considering buying a home, Jessie, would you consider getting a full-time job? My like initial off the cuff answer is no. I don't want a house enough that it would make me go back to work full-time, which is something that I hated, but also to take the time away from Ivy and potentially future children. To me, that is what I'm supposed to be doing. There is privilege in that as well, that we're able to do that with Ben's income. I also, to be honest, with like how much daycare and stuff costs and the amount that I can make in my career in a full-time position would possibly negate any like positive effect we would get from it. If I could go into a job and make like $200K a year, that would be different. No, I don't think so, unless I had to, like if Ben lost his job or we absolutely needed another full-time income, then I would have to figure it out. Right now I'm able to make an okay amount, the amount that we currently need. Doesn't put us above anything, but the amount that we currently need with freelance. I could always, I guess, try to make that higher if I needed to, but then again, we would have to look into more childcare. So right now we get a little bit of childcare that is free. If I had to look into childcare that was paid, that would be different. And yeah, like I would love YouTube to grow to the point where I could actually be making more of an income off of that, because that's where my passion is and like what I want to be doing. I also understand that that's not feasible for everyone and doesn't happen for everyone. I'm still hopeful that like at some point I'll get my break, but as far as a full-time position, I would prefer not to.
So please subscribe and send this channel to 5 of your best friends. I think, yeah, you pretty much hit everything on the head. Like the math doesn't really math when you look at it from that perspective. And then when you look at it from the perspective of what we value as a family and what Jessie values as a person and how she wants to be spending her time and energy, the things just don't really add up. She's grateful and enjoying where she is at in this role. And yeah, you know, if our family grows too, then it only becomes more of the same, I think. We have a good rhythm right now, and unless for some reason we absolutely had to shake it up, yeah, this is working for us.
School plans for Ivy: public, private, or homeschool? So interesting, because I feel like I'm like, she's 1.5. Why do I have to think about school? But you like do. I guess that's kind of a hard question to answer. I know there's like pieces that Ben would prefer if we could make it work. It also depends where we live, because yeah, I'm not gonna send Ivy to public school like in Chicago or something like that. That's just like not what I want. I don't really know. I guess I don't know enough about like school. I think my whole life I just assumed that my kids would go to public school because that's what I did, and right. I got to do all the sports and all the things, and I loved school. I know not everybody has that experience though growing up, and schools are a lot scarier now than they were when we were growing up. I'm not really sure, honestly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you guys get 20 minutes? No. We've had conversations, of course, but it is based in a lot of just kind of like off the cuff, thinking out loud, trying to process type of stuff. It's not really based in specifics and reality in terms of what the options are. For reference, like I went to public school also, so that's what we're familiar with, and same thing, like just kind of figure that would be the route my kids would go based on the things that I've experienced in my life and the things that I value and care about now, and kind of my worldview that's shifted things for me, and this is going to be an important decision. So it is something that we're going to put a lot of thought into. The default is not simply public school just because I've done it or we've done it. We both have our reservations of what that can provide our child in a modern world, in a very quickly changing world in a lot of different ways. Because Jessie referenced it, I will quickly mention like homeschooling is interesting to me. Jessie has basically said like she doesn't feel called to be a teacher or a homeschooling mom necessarily, and so we're by no means set on that either, or have like a very real idea of how that would work for us and our family. I think we really need to talk to a lot of people that have similar views and values to us, and just kind of like our, I don't know, like how our, you know, normal day-to-day life is structured. So if any of you have thoughts, it's probably opening a little bit of a can of worms, because I think a lot of people are opinionated on this. If you do have certain thoughts, and especially if you know a little bit about us and you know Jessie, like what our family looks and feels like, definitely love to hear your experiences or input. Lots more to discuss on that front for us as a family.
I'm about to deliver twin girls. You direct me to particular sources and apps that you used for Ivy. We used a couple of apps. So the one that we use still the most is this Huckleberry app. I've showed it a couple times in vlogs, but this is more like you can just track diapers, solids, feeding, sleep. It gives you like reports. We have the free version. So that Huckleberry app was really helpful for us just to like track her like everyday stuff. And then we also used the Wonder Weeks app. To be honest, I don't use it anymore, but like I would say the first year of her life, especially when they're going through she's still going through crazy things. Initially, they're going through these like big developmental leaps, and you don't really know what's going on because they can't communicate with you whatsoever. Whereas like now I kind of understand Ivy a little bit more. So when she's acting a certain way, I can kind of guess what's happening. This was really helpful because it tells you about like different leaps and like what you might expect, different things you can work on with them too, depending where they're at developmentally. So we really like this app, and we used it, like I said, quite a bit when she was younger. We don't use it as much now, but yeah, I feel like those were the two apps for her that I used the most.
Yeah, and then I was just gonna add that in the Huckleberry app, like every once in a while you get notifications about sleep stuff. So they have, it's not like a newsletter, I don't even know what you call it, but they give you information on that kind of stuff. And I've found that the tidbits or blog links or whatever they have for sleep stuff is very helpful. And then yeah, if you do the paid version, there's like a lot more you can do with it.
Yeah, we're just using the free version of Huckleberry, and like 2 people can use it, which is really great, but I'm sure the other version is good. I do think that we paid for the Wonder Weeks one. Then the last question is, if you had a second baby, do you have enough room in your house to stay for a 3rd year, or would you have to move? My answer to that question is no, we do not have enough room for a second baby in this house. There's definitely not physical rooms. Just thinking through, like, obviously the baby would be in our room with us. There's different things like, you know, the chair is in Ivy's room, the changing table is in Ivy's room. We don't really have room to put a second set of that in our room as well as a bassinet. The answer to that, in my opinion, is no, we do not have enough room. We could make it work for the time being. Would I want to re-sign a full lease for a full another year after having a baby? No, I wouldn't. It might end up that we don't have a choice. However, I'm really hoping that that's that doesn't happen. I don't know. I do not want to stay another year if we had a second kid. I just think it would be too much. Like, it's already kind of cramped. Like I've talked about before, our house, not only is it small, but it's just like set up weirdly. So we have to like watch Ivy by both sets of stairs, and the dogs can only be in part of the house for part of the day. And like the rooms are really small, so you can't really like stay anywhere for a long period of time. So like having a moving toddler, 2 dogs, and then having a baby on top of that just feels like a lot. There's just like a lot to think about. I think it would be like way too much if we had to do that. But
Jessie's got the more opinionated take there. Mine is that what she said, we would make it work if we had to. It wouldn't be the most comfortable, as she mentioned. Also, we may not have much of a choice. I haven't thought about it.
And also like really doesn't want to move.
The act of moving,
right?
Just doing that multiple times in the next handful of years, I don't think is a reasonable expectation for us.
I think if Ben worked outside of the home, we would have enough room.
Yeah.
But
right.
He doesn't. So he takes up a full room, plus he takes up space and makes mess and noise. So like it's already hard enough keeping Ivy asleep in how small of a place we have, and then to also keep a baby asleep and the baby doesn't wake up Ivy, or Ivy doesn't wake up the baby, or Ben doesn't wake them both up, I think it would affect me more if we stayed here. I think it doesn't affect Ben's day-to-day dealing with the layout and size of the house with Ivy like I have to.
It's also a window into how each of us deals with stress. Jessie's is to overthink it and think through all the things and get like frustrated about it, and mine is to just not think about it because I'm like, I don't have bandwidth to be stressed about this thing that I have no idea about for the
next. It's currently not something that we need to think about.
Yeah.
We can't move out of here for at least a year anyway because we re-signed a lease. Well, we didn't technically re-sign anything. We did tell our landlord we were going to stay another year, and we'll see like whatever happens on the baby front. I don't want to, but
and it just
if we have to, we would.
Right, and it ties back into kind of some of the stuff that we talked about earlier in the video too. There are multiple variables. It would be a little cramped given what our normal day-to-day lifestyle is at this point.
It would be a lot cramped. Okay, I think that's all the questions that I have, but thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you ever have any other questions, leave them down below for us. We can always do another video or just answer them in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.